Today we're going to talk about this lens right here. I think this might very well be Fuji's best prime lens ever. It's the 33mm f1.4. I'm currently making this series where I take a good hard look at all my gear. I have 7 lenses and I only want to own 4 of them because I think when we have too much gear, we end up creating less because we have that obstacle in front of us that is choice. What should we use? So I'm scaling down from 7 to only 4. That's the idea anyway. This lens is the only prime lens I brought with me for our year of travels. I've used it in Tokyo, Singapore, Vietnam for mainly street photography, and I think it's just fantastic. But it's not my favorite. So by making this video, shedding some light on why I got this lens, pros and cons, who it might be for, and my perspective, it can potentially help you in your buying decision if you are in the market for such a lens. We'll also cover alternatives to this lens because there are some great alternatives that I've tried as well to this very expensive but very good prime lens from Fuji. Alright, the lens itself, it's 33mm, that means it's 50mm equivalent if we are talking full frame language. It's also fairly new, it came out in 2021 and it's super fast at f1.4, meaning it has very good low light capabilities, which is something street photographers and night street photographers might value. It's also very sharp and has very good color rendering. It's a perfect fit for my X-T5, but I would expect nothing less because it is a very expensive lens and it will set you back, I think it's around $800 or $900. You can find the links to the lens below if you want to check it out. And for the Fuji X system, this is the very best lens that you can get your hands on in terms of technical and optical performance, hands down. On the pro side, it's very fast, like I mentioned, good for night street photographers as it performs so well in low light situations. And the background blur at f1.4 is also fantastic. You'll get a nice creamy background when you stop it all the way down to f1.4. It has a very solid build quality, I must say, and you would expect nothing less when you pay $800 for a lens like this. Good all-round prime lens right there. It can be used for almost anything, and that's also one of the reasons this was the only lens I brought with me for our year of travel. More on that later. The autofocus is also very fast and responsive. Again, you would expect nothing less from a top-tier brand lens like this one. It's weather sealed or weather resistant. You can take it out in the rain, you can take it out in a snowstorm, no problems at all. It's also a few years old now, and to me that is a pro, meaning you can score a better deal on the second-hand market if you are lucky. Now let's talk about the cons. And it is very expensive. That's basically it, I think. Some people say that it's big. I do not notice anything when I'm out and about shooting. It's a very good balance on my Fuji X-T5. So I don't care about size for these primes on the Fuji system too much. And it doesn't have optical image stabilization. I don't care too much about that. And to be quite honest with you, I try to find other cons with this lens, but I just can't find it. It's a very, very good and well-performing lens. And when I got this lens, I was in the mindset of thinking that I needed the latest and greatest, the very best gear. I could afford it, but I think if we think about it, that is not the best reason for you to get gear. It should really be from a creative enhancement point of view rather than thinking you need the very best. But still, I got it and I've used it a lot. I'm very happy with it. It's a good focal range, 33 is, or the nifty 50 in full frame terms. So there you go. And I've really enjoyed using it for my street photography. Now that I've put some thought into thinking about, should I own this lens? Should I keep it? I'm not sure because it's not my favorite focal range, and since I got back from travel, when I was traveling, this was not a problem, something I had to think about since I didn't have access to my other lenses. That I didn't miss them either, but I have 2 other lenses that is very close to this focal range. I have the 23mm and I have the 27. That makes this somewhat redundant. Now the 27mm is f2.8. and the 23mm is f1.4. Why should I have this one? That's a good question and something I'm debating because I don't want to hoard or collect gear just so it can sit on a shelf or become an obstacle because of too many choices. Like, what should I use now? So I'm still undecided if I should keep this lens or not. But who is this lens for? I would say if you really like this focal range, 50mm or 33mm, It's a very good choice as your first prime lens, especially if you want the best of the best. Street photographers will thoroughly enjoy this lens, hands down. It is really, really great, and it produces some fantastic images if you know what you are doing. The same goes for travel photographers. You will have a lot of fun with this lens. It's a good all-rounder, like I already mentioned. And I'm sure portrait photographers will also really appreciate this lens. I don't do much portrait photography at all. That's not my field. But yeah, given it's f1.4, you have that nice creamy, blurry background. It's great. Also maybe for videographers that want to, let's say you are doing an interview or something like that, documentary style, and you want to really isolate your subject by stopping it all the way down to f1.4, again with that nice creamy, blurry background. This could potentially be a very good choice for you. Let's talk alternatives to this lens. Since this is so expensive, we have alternatives from third-party brands out there. And the first one is the Sigma 30mm f1.4. This is a third of the price, I think, and it's also very good. This isn't weather resistant, I also think, despite me having used it side by side the 33mm in a blizzard in Oslo. You can watch the video up here if you want to check that out. Then we have the Viltrox 33mm f1.4. It's also much cheaper. I think that's half price, and you can get it in red if I'm not mistaken. I haven't tried that lens, but third-party lenses to the Fuji systems, they are just getting better and better. Obviously, if you have a native Fuji lens, that will be the best for the Fuji system. I doubt they can make it as good, especially when it comes to autofocus, but it's still some really good alternatives out there if you're on a budget. And if you think about it, will anybody ever be able to tell the difference between a photo taken with this one or the Sigma or the Viltrox? I seriously doubt it if you know what you are doing, so don't fuss too much about gear. But this is the very best 33mm you can get for the Fuji X system if you are in that market. Next lens under the microscope in this little series I'm making about all my lenses, whether I should keep them or no, would be the grandfather mid-range zoom, or the dinosaur I call it because it's so old. It's the 16-55 f2.8 lens. That's next video. Until then, I shall say bye bye.